ICS3U, we just talked about how a string can be considered as a list of characters. And now I'm just going to go over a definition of list with you, because it doesn't have to be just strings. It could be data as well, numerical data. So a list is a collection of variables of all the same type. They could be integers, they could be booleans. Booleans are just true or false. They could be strings, or they could be floats, or they could be characters. I should probably put characters in there because that's what our example was in our last lesson. Okay, so lists are used whenever we have to keep track of a group of things in the computer's memory. They all have to be the same type. So examples are a contact list. Maybe you have a list of people in your contacts, and each person has a name, a phone number, an email address, and each one of those pieces of information has to be stored somewhere. Could be a collection of just phone numbers. Could be a list of bank transactions, in which case probably numbers up to 2 decimal places are probably good. However, banks actually keep your bank balance in more than 2 decimal places because of interest, or at least they should be, and then they round the value when they show you how much is in your account. But if you earn, let's say, 0.033% interest, you might get a value that is past 2 decimal places, but you can only withdraw money up to, you can't even withdraw pennies. You can only withdraw up to 0.05 of a dollar, or the nickels, right? Anyway, it's besides the point. You could also store, so you can store any group of variables in a list that are all the same type. Let's look at some examples now in Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to switch to Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to create a new project here called list example. Lists, or just list_example.py. Okay, this is you can see the output from our previous lesson because I just filmed it, but let's see. So we're going to call this list_example.py. I'm just putting a comment to say what the name of the program is. Here's a list, and I'm calling it data, and it's just going to contain integers. So this list contains 6 different integers, just random data that we collected. Maybe it's temperatures. Maybe it's a science experiment. We collected some temperatures. And how would we print out? This is how we print out the first value in our list. And remember, it starts counting at 0. So if we want to print out that -1 in our first data point, we have to print out data 0. Let's see if we run it. We will get, it's giving me an error. What did I do wrong? I forgot a comma there. Okay, let's try it again. We should get -1. There's our result. We get -1 because our data point at location 0 is -1. Okay, what if we wanted to use a loop? So a for loop, can print out all the values in the list. And we saw this a little bit within our last program with a string, but we can also use that no matter what the data type is. For I in range 0 to 6, and putting a 6 there is okay, but if we had like a few thousand data points, maybe it was being read in from a file, we didn't know exactly how many values there were going to be. There's a better way of specifying the endpoint there, and I'll show you that in a minute. But let's put 6 for now, and we'll just put I. Now, I'm just going to put a print statement with some stars here so we can see where our statement starts. Bring this up, and when we run it, we get all of our data points on separate lines. By the way, if you wanted to print values with all in the same line, if you didn't want the print statement to go to the new line, there's a way to do that. You can say end equals, and then just 2 empty quotes. It prevents the print statement from going to a new line. So now, and that's not a very good looking thing, we're going to put a space. So at the end of each value, we want to put a space. Now they'll be separated. There we go. Now they're separated out with spaces, as you can see, much more readable. Okay, what if we wanted to change some values? So I'm going to just at the beginning here, I'm going to say data at location 2 is equal to 100. This changes the value at location 2. And I'm also going to change the value at location 0. And I'm going to ask the user for this. Enter a value. So in this case, the data at location 0 is going to be taken from the user. So when we run this program, it's going to say enter a value. So I'm going to put 9,000, whoops, I have to go down here, 9,999. And now it's showing me when it prints out the values, data at location 0 has been updated to 9,999. Okay, so there's different ways of getting values into our lists. So now you've seen in our other video how to use a list of characters, and we're calling that a string. And also in this one, a list of integers, and that's just a data set of numbers. Okay, that's the end of this lesson.